What is up, guys? It is Joe. We are back. We're talking ball about the Cats, specifically football. Back to the gridiron for this one as we rank a couple of different breakout candidates in the 2024 season. I've compiled a list of guys that I feel really strongly can have a great season in 2024 and not just put their name on the map in terms of a K-State map, but in an all-conference map, or guys that can really turn that corner into national spotlight type of praise. So I wanted to do that today. I listed out 3 offensive guys, 3 defensive guys, and 1 honorable mention at the end of the video, and I think it's going to be a pretty cool concept. So before I get into my thoughts today, first of all, it's a different background, it's different lighting, it's a little bit of everything. I'm on the road, I'm going back home for a wedding, so in the process of doing that, but if you haven't noticed by now, I am trying to commit to every other day this month, every other day till, the start of the season. I'm posting a video every other day, so I'm putting it out there now. You guys can hold me accountable if I start slacking on that, but I feel like I'm going to try to do every other day. I gotta have a video out. And then if something in between happens, there's more news in between, I'll try to jump on top of that. And the schedule might change, but as of right now, that's where we are at. But for tonight's video, we're drinking claws and we're talking about the Cats. So first things first, thank you all for being here. And if you enjoy the channel, be sure and consider subscribing to the channel. We're getting closer to 2,300 as we get through the off season together, one video at a time. Now, let me start off here. We'll go offense or defense first. Let's see what the general public wants to talk ball about offense. If I had to take a guess, I'm normally a defensive guy, but I'll jump into the offensive scheme for the first part of this. Now, guys, it's pretty obvious, and I should mention this now. Avery Johnson will not be featured on this list because he's Avery Johnson. He's a breakout candidate, but we know that. Everybody knows that. We all know that. I love Avery to death. He's a Heisman-type dude, but you don't need me in this video to say Avery Johnson could break out. Dylan Edwards could break out. There's some things that are too obvious for me to say. That's when we're all kind of like, well, yeah, that's true. And I don't want to take some of the spots for some of these other guys, but that being said, I love both those dudes, but they were just a little bit too on the nose for this list, so I wanted to go a little bit more underrated in a certain sense. Some of them are more, talked about than others, so I don't want to make it sound like everybody is the deepest cut you've ever heard on this list. But let's start off with offense. Let's roll with the offensive side of the ball, starting off with my guy, Garrett Oakley. Now, I know I just said that it's going to be someone a little bit more deeper than surface level. Garrett Oakley has been a guy that's been talked about a lot this offseason, and I think he'll continue to see more of that come to fruition this upcoming season. As a true freshman, he missed a lot of the early season for injury reasons, but the dude's a stud. Let's be honest, straight up. K-State has built a really great tight end room. They've got a lot of young talent in there, and they're led by one of the best positional coaches in the Big 12 in Brian LePack. LePack's done a great job in developing a consistency from that room, including developing Ben Sinnott to a second-round talent after being a walk-on kid. I'm a Garrett Oakley guy. Big Oak is going to be just fine. He's going to be a hell of a receiver, and I'm excited to see how he develops. I'll also bank on what Ben Sinnott's saying, being, hey, this kid can be even better than me if he puts the time in. You're at Kansas State, you're a part of that family, that dude's putting his time in, he's going to be a hell of a player. I won't commit and say he'll be better than Ben Sinnott immediately, but I think that Garrett Oakley has those intangibles to get that formula right, whatever that may be, and I'm excited to see him in this upcoming season. Let's jump to defense, and we'll go back and forth. As a reminder, I've got 3 offensive players, 3 defensive players, and 1 honorable mention. I'm going back and forth between offense and defense in this, so I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit. The first player on the defensive side of the ball is my guy, a new transfer to Manhattan. Some of these guys on this list are transfer guys. Some are coming back for another year. The second player I want to talk about in today's video is Jordan Riley, the safety transfer. He's going to be a heck of a playmaker for Kansas State. And I'll start off with this. First things first, he's a high-profile transfer. I mean, it's not everything to say that your ratings matter so much. I mean, it's a lot of like Kansas State validates themselves by offering the right guys they want. Maybe that was the dumbest statement I've ever said, but just when K-State offers somebody, whether it's in the portal or as a high school kid, that usually means business. It means they're going to be a heck of a player, and it works out 9 times out of 10. So I know that's kind of something hinging to base things off of, but let me talk about someone who's a lot smarter than I am in this, and this is me taking it out of context, so take this with a grain of salt. There's probably some nuance to this conversation that I'm not getting the full picture of this. Cole Manbeck of the 3 Mile podcast with John Kurtz, Derek Young and the boys, the rest of the guys over there at KC Sports Network, talked about Jordan Riley. Cole Manbeck's a action guy. Shout out Cole. Does a heck of a job, with everything they do over at KCSN and 3 Mall. But he watches a lot of MAC football. He's watched Jordan Riley a lot and had this to say. I don't have the exact quote pulled up, but off the top of my head, watching the episode, he basically said that Jordan Riley coming into this next season is going to be a better player at Kansas State than Kobe Savage was last year. There's nuance. I'm not trying to throw Kobe under the bus, not trying to throw Manbeck under the bus in case I'm quoting this out of context, but that gave me all I needed to know. Jordan Riley, talented player in coverage, a really solid player in the box when he gets down into the run game and defending some things there. So I think he is definitely going to be a veteran leader on that side of the ball. And from the people that have talked about him already, whether it be, K-State Online, 3 Mall Rivals, whatever the case is, there's been a lot of positive conversation regarding Jordan Riley the transfer in Manhattan. So he's a guy to watch for on the defensive side of the ball. Let me jump back to offense with our second player. Everybody loves linemen. And folks, today is Taylor Portier's day. I am all team TP. The dude is a stud. Also, quick shout out, had him in a class at K-State before I graduated. Shout out my guy TP. Had both him and Kobe Savage in a class. It was pretty cool. But Taylor Portier, you know the injury history you know he's had there. Last season was a big deal for him. He needed to get that confidence back in his body and his playing shape. And the dude moved some people on that offensive line. I think this year's going to be a jump for him. Not just in the fact that he's going to be one of the better offensive guards in the Big 12 Conference. I think he's probably going to pencil in as that right guard on the offensive line for K-State. I think he's going to be your starter. He started a chunk of games last year and rotated in as well. I think he's going to solidify himself there, but also as one of the leaders in that O-line group. You lost a lot of nastiness, a lot of leadership in those guys. You had vocal guys, you had leadership guys, Cooper Beebe, lead by example, but you also had guys like Christian Duffy, and you had, KT Leviston, a couple other guys in that line that really inspired a lot of that, hey, K-State offensive line, we're here to work. I don't think it'll take long to see TP step into that role, so Taylor Portier deserves a little bit of love on this beautiful Friday morning. I guess at this time I'm recording, it's Thursday night, but for you guys, shout out Friday or whenever you're watching this, and thank you for being here once again. The second player on the defensive side of the ball here, guys, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've raved about him a lot. I'm not going to lie. This is not the first time I've said this man's name, and it will not be the last. My guy, Malcolm Alcorn Crowder, Big Mac, dude. The guy's a hell of a football player, and he's put on a little bit of weight. Not bad weight. The dude's getting up to about 320 was what it looked like, or they said something on a tweet. I'm just going off Twitter. This might not even be true. But from the tweet I saw somebody basically said, hey, he reported to spring workout, summer conditioning at 320. If he's 320, I'm shocked. The dude is built well. He's wearing it well. And obviously, he's probably not going to play at 320. Maybe he is, and he's going to slip a little bit more into the inside spot on the D-line. That's kind of my early pick for that. I think he'll be on the inside, but Big Mac is going to be an NFL football player sooner than we realize. I think collectively as a fan base, that recruitment was well documented of, okay, this is a big one. K-State used a lot of offseason hype and a lot of momentum getting a couple of different people in that class to commit. And then Big Mac came in and really set that. Getting him back, getting the grades up, getting things right in the classroom, him on the football field is going to be a scary thing for opposing offensive linemen. I mean, there's a guy that's 6'6", 300+ pounds, can move the way he does, had a ton of sacks last season in junior college, and I think he's going to continue that trend for Kansas State. Shout out Big Mac one time, big friend of the channel. Now, jumping back to offense, this one is a pretty mainstream take. I'm going to admit that now. I'm not the first one to say this. I won't be the last. It's been said all year and the previous year. Give me Keegan Johnson to have a hell of a year at the wide receiver spot. Now, a trend you've seen in this message already of what I'm saying, some of these guys have been injured. Some of these guys have been banged up. They've been sidelined for a bit. I really like Keegan Johnson as a receiver, and I think the fact that he showed so much maturity staying in Manhattan after Will Howard left, after that previous class transferred out, that's a big thing for me. I don't know if that was ever fully documented. Like, I know he's a younger guy, so he kind of fits in with this group now, but he was really brought in to be that big splash playmaker last season. That definitely didn't, work out to fruition the way we all thought it would. He was battling injuries. He couldn't get on the field. And then down the stretch, you saw him in that Texas game. He had a coming out party. He played well in the bowl against NC State as well. There's no doubt Keegan Johnson has the ability. It's going to be the health, maintaining the health and staying locked in mentally. And I think the fact that he's already stayed here through conditioning, stayed through the transfer portal windows, not that he was a target to transfer out, but a lot of guys in today's era of college football, if your season doesn't go the way it does, sometimes you point fingers instead of thumbs, and it gets to the point where it's, okay, let me look for somewhere else. Keegan wasn't having that. He is back in Manhattan, and I think he's going to be a hell of a player if he can stay healthy, which signs are pointing that way. I hope offseason workouts have gone well. Haven't heard anything yet, but the dude seems to be a pretty good player, so I'm excited to see what he can do in a full season's time, as well as in a dynamic offense like Kansas State's expected to be. Our third and final defensive player. Caveat to this pick. There's about 5 different dudes I could mention specifically in this one, because I think if you pick anyone at the defensive end position, probably going to get it right 5 times out of 5 times. You could sit here and tell me that Chidi Obiizor, you could tell me Tobias Insomni, you could tell me Travis Bates, you could tell me any of the dudes at the defensive line position. You could say Jordan Allen as well. There's a lot of dudes on that defensive line that I think could be very good, but I really, really feel good about Chidi Obiizor. Now, I'm not saying Tobias Insomni or any of these other guys I mentioned aren't going to live up to, an expectation or anything like that. K-State brought in a loaded defensive line class in the previous class. I think it was 2023 at least. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me, but Chidi Obiizor's older brother has been a stud for TCU this past season, and I think he's going to really hit the ground running. Roommate of Avery Johnson, which I know that doesn't technically mean anything on the field, but you know that Avery's going to be a superstar. Everybody's around you, putting Avery in that spot. Avery's putting the light in himself. But I think being that guy of like, hey, I'm a young guy. I'm going to step into the fold, see if I can get out there and make some plays. Chidi Obiaizer and the young group of defensive ends are all going to be studs. I know they're all going to have to figure out the rotation with, Brock Mott, Cody Stuffle being both there. So there is going to be a little bit of give and take, but Chidi Obiaizer has the physical tenacity. He's got the strength. He's got the ability. It's just about playing time, getting him on the football field. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out down the stretch, but I think he's going to be a hell of a player, and we'll get to that 3-letter league one day. But guys, let me jump into my last pick, my honorable mention of the video. We've got 3 offense, 3 defense in the books. This is my honorable mention, and thank you if you've watched this far and seen the honorable mention. I'm excited to mention this. How about my guy, Ty Bowman, as a special teams player? I'm not saying he's going to get out there and, having a 1,000-yard season as a receiver, but the dude on special teams makes plays. K-State has a lot of turnover, actually, on kickoff, on punt team. Ty Bowman was making plays. Whenever he was out there, he was making plays. As a gunner, as a guy going after the special teams return man, I think Ty Bowman's going to have a season where you look at him and say, okay, this is your Seth Porter. This is your energy guy. This is your glue guy that's going to get out there and make plays on special teams and be one of those key fundamental dudes that brings back the type of special teams incredible performances we've seen at Kansas State. I think Ty Bowman's going to have a hell of a year out there covering kicks. But guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. There'll be a lot more of these ranking lists and stuff as we get through the offseason. I'm trying to keep it fresh and come up with some different angles to hit you with as more news comes through the transfer portal and through, offseason football stuff. We're learning a little bit more about the team. Should get some more information here soon about the transfer portal for basketball. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching and for all the support on the channel. From one cat to another,